Okay, so we just finished our circle map, brainstorming our ideas, and now we're going to move into our flow map, sequence of events, and I'm going to walk you through how to take your information from your circle map and put it into your flow map. So the first thing we need to do is frame our map, just like we did with every other thinking map. We want to give it a frame. Okay, and then we're gonna write flow map on the bottom, and then this is for sequencing. So you need to write sequencing at the top. Okay, don't forget to put your name on it and the date. Okay, so let's start building our boxes. Well, we know that we have to do our opening. Well, this box is easy to fill because your opening is going to be what your main idea or thought is. So I can draw my opening box, label it opening, and then write Paisley gets an Elmo okay, and then we know that our opening will immediately go into our next idea. So I'm going to flip back. We need to decide which one of these three we're going to do next, which will be our first main event within our sequence. And it makes sense to me that in order for my story to even start, we've got to talk about Paisley getting surprised with the Elmo. So that's going to be my first event. So I box that blue. And then I am going to make a blue box here for this first event. And Paisley is surprised when Elmo comes to life. Now remember, I have to have an element in my story that is imaginative, based on my imagination. And we know that Elmo cannot come to life. Elmo is not real. So that's a good piece for my imagination and a nice element of the story for my readers. Okay. I also want to think about the senses as I write. Before I continue on, I want to think about my 5 senses and what I might add to this in details, with details, so that it makes my writing easier later. So how is she surprised? There's my keyword, and then the event that causes that surprise, okay, is when Elmo comes to life. You don't see that every day, right? So I want to talk about her reaction, right? How she reacted. And maybe she screamed, probably clapped because it was fun, and probably gave Elmo a big ol' hug. Okay, so that's how Paisley reacted. And I want to make sure that I tie that in with a line and make it blue because it's part of my elements of my first event. Okay. So there's my first event, and I color coded that to make sure that that comes first in my narrative when I start writing my sloppy copy. So from our first event comes our second event. Well, we got to figure that out, right? What our second event is going to be. I know that I want time to resolve their argument within my narrative. I don't want to do that at the end because I want to share some of the fun things that they were able to do together. So I am going to now address my conflict and make that my second event. Okay, so I'm going to again make my box for my second event. Try to leave room if you can for your other pieces of information. So I can put in here Elmo and Paisley argue. And then I know that part of the reason why they're arguing is Paisley won't share. And I'm going to abbreviate her name with a P. And what won't she share? Any of her toys, her snack, her blanket, nothing. She won't share anything. So there's some really important pieces to add. And then I'm going to color code this in orange. Now also I know that that is probably going to make Elmo sad. So I'm going to put a sad face to remind myself to include that reaction in my writing. Okay, and I forgot to do that with my first event. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add a happy face because I know that this is going to be joyful, this is going to be sad and probably angry, and then hopefully we'll get back to joyful in the third event and in the conclusion. Okay, so from our second event, oops, title, don't forget to title your second event. Okay, and then we're going to make our last box. But I want to remind myself of what my information was. You'd want to work smarter, not harder. So just flip back to your circle map and Elmo and Paisley play hide and seek. So that's our third event, okay? So I'm going to make my next box. And I'm going to talk about Paisley and Elmo playing. Well, I just thought about, is the only thing they're gonna play hide and seek? Maybe not. When you have your friends over, is that all you play? No. So maybe I should add some more things that they could play with. Legos, they could build things with Legos. Maybe they're gonna go to the park and swing, but I definitely want to make sure I put hide and seek because that was my original idea because I like it so much. So I can underline those separate thoughts, but they are details that go with my event. So this is my third event, and I'm going to label that. And now I need to come up with a resolution, right? So we know that from our third event, we are going to go down to our resolution or our closing, okay? I'm making this long and skinny because I want to make sure that I have enough room underneath if I want to add some details. Whoops, C-L-O-S-I-N-G. I know that looks like a D, but it's not. There you go. So, the only thing I didn't address was how I'm going to resolve the conflict here. And I'll do that in my writing, in my sloppy copy, but I want to make sure that I don't forget. So I am going to mark in here resolve conflict to remind myself that I have to figure out how to end that, how to fix the argument so that they can have a great playful experience. And my third event, that's gonna be really happy, isn't it? Yeah. And hopefully when I resolve this conflict, that's gonna lead to happiness too. So I wanna make sure that I am tying that in together in the right section of my narrative. So I'm thinking I want to be in this story too. So I want to say Emma, that's what Paisley calls me, so that's what I'm using, decides to play with them. And then feeds them and tucks them in for bed. Now don't worry if your sentences don't sound quite right yet. That is okay. Because this is just a thinking map. You can change anything that you want to, but the most important pieces that you want to pay attention to are: make sure that your sequence of events goes in the same order that you originally wanted to when you start your sloppy copy, and make sure that I'm hoping you can see this, yes, that the blue, your first event, matches your second event, and the conflict matches the spot where you're going to talk about that, and then your third event matches your circle map. When we do our writing, we will figure out more details, but for right now, I have a pretty good start. So go ahead and pause the video or stop the video. You can rewind it if you can't remember how to put these pieces to your narrative puzzle together, and make your own based on your event that you're talking about in your imaginative narrative.